Next slide. First, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about some things you can find online about Bemis Historical Society. Joel, in a few minutes, is going to be telling you all about the building. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information, like a little bit of genealogy information and things like that. We do have a website, bemishistory.org, where you can find upcoming meetings. You can find meetings that we've already had, and if we recorded those meetings, you'll find the link to it on YouTube, where you can look it up and watch the meeting. There's also, next slide. There's also a slide online that has some Bemis memories. So if you click on one of those links, you can read the story. If you have stories that you would like to share for us to post online, just give it to me like in a Word document and I'll get it online for you. Next slide. I have no memory of being in this building until it became a museum. But this is proof that I was in this building when I was 6 years old. I'm the little brownie scout down at the far end, standing next to the two troop leaders. Our troop leader on this end of the picture on the left end is Mrs. Kelly, and at the other end is Mrs. Clarence Mitchell and Mrs. Louise Goff. Beth Goff was nice enough to share this picture with me. And that was made in 1957. And I found an article in newspapers.com that's in the Jackson Sun that didn't have our picture, but it did tell about it. It told the troop leaders' names and that we were here having a Girl Scout event. Next slide. We have a Bemis Facebook page. We also have some Facebook groups that you can follow. But on our Facebook page, we have the Bemis Cemetery booklet. It's 52 pages, and it's on our Facebook page. Also, the 1930 census. It's 50 pages of the census, the Bemis portion of the census that year. So you can find your relatives who lived here in 1930. Also, the 1950 census recently came out, so you can find your relatives on there. Somebody will find yourself on there, and it will tell you what they did in the colony. Next slide. The Bemis Cemetery is listed in findagrave.com, and most all of the people who are buried there have a memorial on Find a Grave. And if you have pictures that you want to post on that particular memorial, you can do that. There is no cost to get on this website. So it's findagrave.com. Next slide. On YouTube is where we have some of our programs saved. So you'll see there's two of this particular page that Joel did, and we've been trying to record several of our programs recently. And the one today we'll be trying to put it on there too if it works out. So there are more than what you're seeing right there. Next slide. I hope you've all had a chance to look around the museum today at all of our wonderful, beautiful artifacts. There's so many different things, and we thank all of you who donated items from your families, and I know you enjoy coming back to see those. Next slide. This is just one of our display cases. The next slide, also display cases. And one more slide of display. Okay. We're also proud of our trophies. How many of you here played basketball? Okay, I thought we had Miss Scott can say yes. So we appreciate everybody donating these wonderful items. The next slide is Dr. Smith's display case. Dr. Smith did my first grade exam. I remember going up to his office. It was kind of scary. You go up there and have skeletons hanging in it. And as a 5-year-old, when I was getting ready to start first grade, that was kind of scary. The next slide shows our military section. The next slide shows our library. We have several books, pictures. We have some VHS tapes, and we do have a VHS player. And some of us have some at home if you need to borrow one to see the video. And if somebody would like to maybe save these into DVDs for us, we be glad to have volunteers to help us with that. The next slide, we have several blueprints. This happens to be the blueprint for the children's playground. If you didn't have a chance to go up there earlier today, we do have new playground equipment that we're really proud of. 1922, Joel says. Yeah, most of these blueprints are from like 1922, but it was a long time before they actually had the playground. But we have blueprints for the medical clinic, the schools, the YMCA, the layout of the town, the houses, the cotton mill. We just haven't found the blueprint yet for this building, which I would love to see it, but we haven't found it yet. The next slide will show you the YMCA. And there are several other blueprints for the YMCA. I just put one slide on here. And then we have a lot of vintage photos. I think these are just wonderful. One at the bottom with the wagon and the horses in front of the Bemis mercantile. And we think that was Melissa's High School is what it looks like was written on it. And if you haven't had a chance to see the display right in front of the mural, if you have some old pictures and papers and things that you need to preserve, see Miss Rhonda before you leave today. She has a handout she can give you some information about preserving old documents. The next slide will show you from the Golden Anniversary, May the 19th, 1950, from the Jackson Sun. We have that entire newspaper, 105 pages. They're saved back in our library section. Big sheets, all laminated, and you'll find all kinds of wonderful stories. If you have a subscription to newspapers.com, please go on there and look that up and read some wonderful stories all about Bemis. It's all through the papers. And the advertisements that are in that paper, all these companies were congratulating Bemis on their 50th anniversary. So you'll see it on the right side of the screen. Those were teachers and principals. So you might see one of your former teachers on there. The next slide. Joel has written this wonderful book, Bemis Tidbits. It has 124 tidbits in it. I only listed one page of the contents there, but there are several wonderful stories. If you grew up in Bemis, or anybody that even interested in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, you should get that book. It has some wonderful stories in it. The next slide. I want to personally thank Joel Jackson for being such a wonderful chairman of the Bemis Historical Society. He is working for Bemis all the time, all the time. Everything that we had today was his work. He has written books, he has written articles, and he is always willing to come and give people a tour. So at the bottom of that screen, you'll see 3 different interviews that are online that you can watch. And if you would like me to email you this information or give you a copy of it after the program, I'll be glad to do that. And Joel is up next.
It's Christmas in Bemis. Next. That's the drone shot. Bill Hoffman does a good job of that. He did today. He went all around the area while we were outside eating barbecue and taking our picture from there. So you can see yourself on the top of your head. Probably tomorrow. Next. Yeah, here we go. This is Judson Moss Bemis. He's the guy that had the money. I found out later that Mr. Bemis didn't have the money, but he had good credit. And he borrowed the money to build Bemis. I'd always thought he had it in his hip pocket. But he meant what happened? Well, we'll see here. That over. Get my people going here. Well, I can't make it work. Alice Cogswell, Bemis, the lady on the right there. He married her, and she was from Boston, and she had connections with the Boston money. Judson was from St. Louis, Missouri, and it was just a small town. Didn't have a lot of money, but he did have enough money to send his son out of Farwell, Bemis. There's a street in Bemis called Farwell. Not many people live on it, but there's a street called Farwell. In fact, before it was Farwell, it was East 3rd Street was the name of it before they built Silver Circle. And because it was a street that went up that way. And once they got it developed, East 3rd Street became Farwell Street. But he graduated from MIT, and he got a degree in engineering, so he was the brains behind building Bemis. He graduated in 1893, so that was just before Mr. Bemis needed him. Next. His classmate was Andrew Helton and Arthur Shirley. Helton was the one that did the architecture, and Shirley, Helton, well, one of them done landscaping, the other one done housing, and so that's how we got Bemis built. This street out here curves in front of the museum. Originally, it was just a squared off street. And Mr. Shirtliff came in and he put that little curve in there. And then he built a Silver Circle. And he put a little curve up there in the street. And he didn't believe in straight lines, I guess. But anyway, that's, and the guy, James Buchanan Young, was one of Mr. Bemis, Judson Bemis's best bosses in St. Louis. And he thought he was able to come to Bemis and be the mayor and the manager of Bemis, and he was. He came here in 1900 when it was first started. His house was the first house built in Bemis on 5th Street. And you say, well, what did he do about water? He had a well, they dug him a well in the backyard, and he run a pipe to the creek for his sewage. So that's the way things were in 1900. Next. This is the picture of this building from out on the railroad, back this direction. And it's covered up with trees. That's the way architects do stuff. So you can't tell what you're showing you. But that's a picture from the east. That's the front door right there. And here's the door on the east side. Next. This building was built at the same time this auditorium was built. This part right here, over to there, was original. These wings here and here were added on in 40. Next. Now here's something that never happened. It was the Bemis Inn, and they had plans to put it right over where this barber shop is across the street. And they had, I can't find the blueprints. I've been through 2 or 3 times. There's 1,000 blueprints to look at. But we do have the roof tile. Robert has some right there on the table beside him. Turn around and give it one of them out there. Somebody on that side. That's what's on the roof of this building, and also would have been on the roof of the Bemis Inn. We ended up with all the roof tile that was going on the Bemis Inn in the basement of this building right now. And there's an empty lot over there where the barber shop is. That's where it was going. Next. This house, which is located at 111 North Massachusetts now, was the house of this lady right here. When she was a teenager, they moved it. And they moved it down to Missouri Street. And as they moved it, she was inside playing the piano, and she's probably showing off. But she'd play it and they'd say, play it again. So she'd play something else. And it took all afternoon with a bunch of horses and rolling timber, kind of like telephone poles, underneath the house. And they moved it down there and put it at 111. You can go down and look at it right now on North Missouri. Next.
Where was it? Where was it?
Right here. They moved it from this location. They needed space to put this. This came along in 1920, so they didn't know. Now this house is the one at 111 North Massachusetts. You can't hardly see it, it's in the bushes. But it was also, there were 3 houses. That's the second one. Next, third house is across the street at 110 North Massachusetts. Now, on each side of this built house, on the other side, there's an alley. There's no other place in Bemis where a house has an alley on both sides of it. But this is one place where it has an alley on both sides. And that's where they put the 3 houses. They didn't intend to put houses when they laid out Bemis, but they ended up doing it. Next, this is the front corner of this building when it was being constructed. This is Missouri Street, back this way. Next, this is the back side of it. And this arch right here is right behind us, straight in the back, where they unloaded things when they would have shows here in the actors and so forth would unload their material right through that door. Next, this is a shot from the balcony. Showing the balcony, and right there, it's a hole in the wall. That's where they shot the film through, shot the projector. Next, this is a close-up of the balcony. As you know, teenagers like to sit in the balcony. Wasn't very good lighting up there. Next, and this is going the other direction, taken from the balcony toward the stage. This is a curtain. The curtain we have behind us right now is not original, but we found a piece of the original color, and we bought new. And so this was put up in 2008, but it's a velour type curtain. Next. See what I'm looking at there. That's just showing how big the curtain was, I think. Let's see, what does that say right there? Yeah, south to north, okay. Next. Right out front, in the middle of the aisle as you come in, is a ticket booth. And here's the same picture of the ticket booth going crossways in the lobby. So it kind of stood back away from the door. And if you look in the floor out there, there's a spot right there and a spot right there where this protector barrier was put in the ground. The ticket booth itself was movable. You could move that thing around, but that barrier kept it from getting knocked over when the kids got scuffling around. Next, this is the screen, and right here in the floor, and 2 other places on the other side, there and there, there's brass plates in the floor up here right now. You can come up and look and see where the original silent movie screen was mounted. Next. This is the silent movie projector. We had that in the file somewhere. It was lighted not by projector lights, but by carbon arc. Carbon arc. Carbon arc lighting is like 2 pencils of carbon. It's fed real high voltage. I don't know, still haven't found out how much. But they had special things in the basement to up the voltage. And they put power to it, and it would cause an arc, like a welding torch. And that caused a light. And that light then they used to project to the screen. Next. Here's the first movie, Anita Stewart as Madge. And it was a horse racing story with a love story attached. Two things that people in those days, you know, were interested in, horses and love. And it opened in 1922. In this movie, we don't know exactly what day, but it was spring. Next. This is the rack that it set up. In fact, that rack is still upstairs. We just hate to move it. And it's decrepit and looks like that. But it's up there. Next. This is the new projector. That new projector is over on the west side of our building over here on display right now. And there's a story that goes with that. You get that guy's name. Clark Shively donated it to the museum. His daddy bought it from Bemis to take out to the Jackson drive-in movies. And he used it out there till he thought it was wore out. And he bought him a new theater in Lexington, Tennessee, called the Princess Theater. And he took our Bemis projector to Lexington and used it for a number of years. And finally they closed it down. And his son, Preston Shively, donated it to us in 2002. 44 years after it left Bemis, it came back. So it's back home. Next. What's interesting about this picture is the chandeliers. You can't tell much about it, but they're hanging. Real nice chandeliers up high. And this was a view from the balcony toward the west side. Next. Here we are, Jimmy Young graduation class of 1945. In fact, the graduating class of 1922 graduated from here. And 23, 24, 25, all of them, through 1956. And that was the end of it. And in 57, we had consolidation and all that, and we lost our place to have it. Right here, I looked at this picture 100 times before I noticed that. That is a set of two big radiators. This building was heated by steam heat from the mill, and that was the two radiators up front. And I'll tell you about the rest of them later. Next. Picture on the left up at the top is just a class play. The way the pictures were, way the graduation happened back then, it was 3 nights. First day was a Sunday afternoon. They would have a baccalaureate with inspirational and religious type program going on. And that was all there was to it. They just inspiring the people who had graduated. And then they would have, the next night would be class play night. They'd have some sort of play that the seniors had produced. And then the next night, which would be Tuesday night, was graduation. So all this took place in this theater right here on this stage. Here's a Valentine party program. We don't know if it was a Crown Miss Bemis or what, or Miss Valentine maybe, but it was here in the museum. Next. Class of 45 had their casual picture made also. They came outside and stood on the steps right outside here. In the meantime, after those steps were destroyed and a ramp was put in so they could put a truck in here for a warehouse, they would put steps back. So it's basically back like it was in 1945. Next. This is 1940. Notice all the ivy up and down. This was a common thing. The Bemis Mill itself was covered with ivy. I don't know what it was all about. Maybe to keep the sun from doing it, getting it hot. But even on the north side of the building, where the sun never hit, they had ivy all over. There's another story about trimming ivy. If you'll notice right, get my light, right there is a sign. That's the sign. We had a better picture before the ivy took over, and this is 1923. That's Alva Swift Mackenzie. Anybody know Cletus Mackenzie? He was more in this age group. That was his mother. Next. Now this is the steps, going down the steps. Start right here, come down the steps, and you go into this second picture over here. Is what the dressing rooms were. It's one open area right now. At one time it was 3 dressing rooms there. Next. This is the plumbing underneath the floor where we are right now. New drain line. And then the other side's the same thing. Next. This is a stack of the roof tile that are in the basement right now. And that's the flatlets that we passed around. This is a stack of the corners and arches and stuff like that are still in the basement right now. Next. This is a picture, and it's the Ludovici Cleodon Company in Chicago. And this imperial tile, I thought was the name of the company for a while. But I think the name of the company is right there. And this is the style of tile that we have on this building. And if you'll notice the next tile picture here, each tile has a date. This one was made in April of 21. So, kind of old. Next. Whenever we found these tiles, they were in the horse barn on Butler Street, up in the stalls. I forget how many stalls, like 10 stalls full of tile. We contracted with the county to have prisoners come out, take those tile out of those stalls and put them in wraparounds to ship. Because we didn't need them when we found out that the company in Chicago would give us more money than we thought they were worth. So we had 2 truckloads. They're flatbeds like that right there. And we filled up 2 trucks with tile. I think we sold them for $18,000, which is $18,000 worth of tile we didn't need. Next. Okay. Here's new plumbing, 2008. Seems like I have another. Anyway. You have another one that you want down there? Here it is. Next. This is just more plumbing, shows how it looks 2008. Next. This is a picture of the floor. And after we got all that main off, first of all, they had 2x8 pieces of wood crossways over this good floor we have that we're looking at right now in order to protect it when they made this into a cotton bale warehouse. And also gave it extra strength. They had to pull all that up and got prisoners to do that also. Next, this is the step out. You have to go outside to go into what I call the third basement. There's the north basement, the center basement, and the south basement. This goes down the steps. And the reason it has a wooden door on it is because some kids got in there and broke the glass out of the door that we had. And I thought it was no need trying to do that again, so we put plywood over it. And they haven't broken it since then. Next. In the basement, we have a new water heater. We do have hot water in this building. But right next to it is a central vacuum unit. In 1922, there were holes down the center aisle, right at the end of the seats. And there was a plate that would rotate, had one screw in it. It was a square plate. And they'd turn that plate around and sweep all the popcorn down into that hole. And they turned on the vac, and then all the popcorn ended up in the basement. And so it had a new modern central vac. How many people have central vacs right now? Oh, you're behind. Most of the time people say they don't work too good, but 22, go ahead. Next. This is the switch box that brought the voltage up to enough to make those carbon arc work. It wasn't 110, but we don't know exactly how many thousand volts it was. And to the right, you can't tell much about it, but that's a fan. It's 6 feet high, and it's backed up to a hole in the basement. Next. And well, let's see. Can't tell much about it, but there's a motor right here that goes over here and turns that fan. Here's the ductwork. The next picture on the right is the ductwork that sends it into this building. Next. And if you look, you see those things all along the walls here. That's where the air came in. There's 26 vents in this building, 13 on each side. They're all shapes, tall ones, flat ones, long ones, but they're all take the cool air out of the basement and send it into the building. A day like today, it would lower the temperature probably 10 degrees, which wasn't bad. No air conditioning. It came out from under the mill. The mill was always cool under it. And also, each one of these vents had a radiator that hot water would circulate through the radiator, and it would send warm air through the same hole in the wintertime. Next, right here, you step off right here, and here's the tunnel. And here's Olivia. And then we had a tunnel tour, after the meeting on August the 17th of 21, which wasn't that far away. But she was in the tunnel, having her picture made. She's in the sixth generation. That's going across, under the street to the west, toward the west. Next, here's another picture showing the decrepit way it is right now. These water pipes up here, a lot of them had steam in them. Others had electric down lower, electric lines to come in the building. This building didn't have any. It was underground utilities, steam, heat, and electric lines. Okay. Who is that? Jason. Jason, go. See here? There he is, that one right there at the computer. He had his picture laid in the tunnel. Same day, Olivia did. Next. Now this is our fire protection in the riser room, and it has to have a compressor. And the reason that says up is because the picture was so confusing. I was trying to decide which way was up, and I couldn't tell finally I decided which way was up, so I just labeled it, so it wouldn't be put in the computer wrong. Here's some gauges and so forth. The pressure has to be maintained to keep the water from coming into the pipes. All these sprinkler pipes up above your head right now are empty. No water, because the pressure is keeping it out. Okay, next. Oh, there we are. After everything was said and done, the last movie was the last movie was The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Years ago, I was trying to find out about this, what time the last movie was. I knew it was a 50-foot woman. People told me that, 2 or 3. I was talking to Gerald Ross. You know, remember Gerald? He told me, he said it was August of 58. I said, August of 58? He said, yeah, I remember. Just went back to school. I was up there raising Cain, and it was the last movie. I said, well, I knew you raised Cain, but I didn't know you remembered that good. So there was a guy named Aaron Long, who was a cotton classifier here. He just moved to Bemis, and I asked him, I said, you've been here a long time. When did you come? He said, I moved here 1st of September of 58. I said, well, you don't remember the theater. He said, oh, I remember them talking about it. I said, they just talked about it. They just closed it a couple of weeks before I got here. I said, well, okay. I said, you and Gerald Ross agree. So now I can believe Gerald Ross. And it was the attack of the 50-foot woman. And what happened was, she went out into the desert, and they were doing atomic bomb testing, and she got hit with radiation, and she started growing. And her husband had been mistreating her for years, and so she got mad at him, and she just tore up everything, and she was getting back at her husband. And, that was the attack of the 50-foot woman. And I bought this movie online. It's on CD, and I watched it a couple of times at home. It's kind of boring, or kind of corny, but it's funny, and we'll probably show it at some meeting pretty soon. Okay, next. Okay. Auditorium closed August of 58 and converted to a warehouse, and they put this ramp in. Notice right there. That's how they drove the trucks into the building, up that ramp. In 67, they sold it to Tennessee Textiles, Shaky family. In 1980, then they decided they didn't need it. Mel Blanchard bought it. In 85, we turned around and bought it in 99, March of 99, right after we had become a historical organization in February of 98. A year and a month later, we bought this building. And it was green. Mr. Shaky decided he wanted it green, so he painted it green. Well, we decided we wanted it back like it was. So they were starting to paint pink right back in there. And I took the picture. Next. As you go up into the balcony, there's a set of stairs. They're steel. I mean, they're good imported stairs. I think they're from Chicago. But there's 2 different styles of treads on there. You notice them? The one on the east, on your left, is that long ways, and the one on the west end, it's got a completely different tread. And so that's your 2 different stairways into the balcony. Next. In the balcony, there's what they call a mop room. And it has a sink in there, a mop sink. And in that room, it is made out of plaster. People scratch their names in there. And different people, you can't see one right now on the left. You can see it. Anyway, Gone with the Wind. Somebody told me that the Bemis had Gone with the Wind one day before they had it in Jackson. Mr. Bemis, or Mr. Young, had connections, and he got the movie in Bemis a day before the other theaters in Jackson got it, and made them all mad. Next. Yeah, here we go. I knew it was something. Bobby Fisher, he signed the wall. He's one of the Fisher boys, out middle ways. Right there is the sink. Mop sink. Next. These are other pictures in the balcony. Right now, if you go up in the balcony, where the seats used to be, there's ductwork, air conditioning duct. And this is looking, that right there is a steel beam. And that holds that whole area up, looking toward the stage. And what's that right there? I don't know. Next. This is a rack that a cabinet that held extra reels of film. Bemis themselves had looks like a bunch of, maybe looks like 100 different reels that they didn't have to rent for the movies of the week. They had on file. They had a lot of comedies and a lot of historical film, but that was their where they stored their movie reels. Next. Now this is in the attic. If you notice, it's a lot of wood. It's going all directions. But it has to hold up. What do I say? 40,000 pounds of top. So it has to have a lot of work with it. Here's another down one side. There's a walkway right down in the center of the top of this thing. And you can walk right into the other. There's lights up there. Not much, but some. This is ace. Then in the bottom, right there, is sort of a switch box. And I think it's dead, but I don't know. I'll have to ask Robert. He's going to go up there one of these days, stick his finger in it and find out. Someday soon. Next. Oh, yeah, there we go. When we remodeled the building, we had to start thinking of what it was like in 2008. So we made a little kitchenette. Kitchenette is right behind this wall over here. And it has the sink and the cabinets and a little bathroom in there. Next, over the other side, right over here, is where we have the switch boxes and all of that. That's today. Next, let's see here. This is some stuff on the floor. This is the Rosalie's mural, and there's the wagon at the end of it that protrudes out of the mural. And here's a horse and wagon picture that we have set on the floor over there on the west side, bringing cotton to the mill. And here's our trophy in the bottom right. Next. Another picture of the main floor back when it was just built. And had chairs sitting out, ready for a crowd. And other in the bottom, just displays and so forth. And here, the third picture over on the right is just a shot toward the stage. Next. This was in 2021, the Bemis days. 2021, that's last year. I've got a picture of Bemis Day in about 2010, and a big crowd in there then. Next, here we are. It was built at a cost of $100,000. There's a little discrepancy on our advertised cost. Our sign outside says $750,000, and Bill King from that Mercer, Denmark, he came up with that. Then the newspaper came up with $100,000, and later on we found a newspaper article that said it cost $75,000 and $25,000 worth of seating and interior improvements. I guess that's a projector. So that's where the extra $25,000 came from. 1932. Ivy all over. Next. Here's the timeline. Kind of quick we run right quick through it. They, 1922 is grand opening, 100 years old this year. I done told you about Old Kentucky. 1958, we had the big 50-foot woman. 67, went to a warehouse. 91, Bemis was put on the Historic District National Register at the end of the year, really, 91. 98, we became society, kind of society. And then 99, we bought the building and restored it and named it the Bemis Mill Village Museum. And 22, we celebrated 100 years for the Centennial anniversary of the Bemis Mill Village building, which was called the Bemis Auditorium. We can still call it that, Bemis Auditorium. I believe that's the end of it, isn't it? No, here we are. We're back again. That's us. Somebody done took the tent down. It's gone. All right. There's our Bemis camp. And that's all I have. I'm going to go